My name is Matan Gavish.
Matan, are you ready to give us your minute pitch and get some feedback?
I will do my best, absolutely.
Let's do it. Tell us, what are you building?
I built up an AI engine that decodes clinical jargon.
I'm Dor. I'm the co-founder and CEO of PMeets.
I'm the CEO of CyberSpray, and at CyberSpray, we've effectively working to solve ransomware.
My product brain wants to understand more.
With Pandora's Way, we are reimagining rites of passage under a modern lens.
Why are you the person to solve this problem?
I transitioned a lot in my career. I started as a lawyer. I also grew to an entrepreneur father, and I was very close to him. And he was always networking.
Everything you just said was far more compelling than your pitch.
What we do is we take a foundational model and make sense of it.
First few years, I worked exclusively with law enforcement.
Because of your past experience, because of the narratives you bring to the table, it will cause some people to say no, but it will cause other people to say yes. Welcome to the feedback loop with return guest. He did not get enough last time.
No, I did not. I'm so glad to be back.
So glad to have you.
New digs. I'm excited for you.
Right, yeah. You were the last episode in the old office.
Oh, pour one out.
Yeah, exactly. It was a nice office,
It was
but
great.
we're gonna make this place pretty special over time.
Congrats.
Thank you. We've had a different backdrop each time. Today we're trying high school photos. And I think it's a vibe,
Awesome.
So let me get into the feedback loop a little bit, then we'll do intros and then we'll get into it. So for those of you who have not been before, this has been a really special event for the past couple of months where a batch of founders, typically in that pre-seed to seed stage, sometimes a little bit later, gets up on stage one at a time and gives their 1 minute pitch. And after that 1 minute pitch, then they get the feedback loop, the essential core storytelling, both about the concept that they're building, the pitch that they've given us, and hopefully it creates an inflection point for them in their startup journey. Because I think the thing that can hold so many founders back that is underrated is the narrative, the storytelling, especially the succinct version of it, that a lot of founders take some time to craft. Even, I think some of the best storytellers we think of didn't have their greatest story in the first few years. So that's the feedback loop in a nutshell. We're going to have fun with that batch of founders today. If you haven't spotted us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I said YouTube already. Where else? Yeah. All those places. You can also catch Mike's first episode with us, which we released Sunday. But before we get into that, Mike, why don't you do a quick introduction to you?
Sure. No, thanks for dropping it on Father's Day. It was a really nice Father's Day present. I was like, oh, look.
It was celebrating you.
Thank you. I was like, I got to hang out with my kids and I got a YouTube video. What a great, thank you so much for having me again. I'm Mike Ma. I'm managing partner at Sidecut Ventures. We're a pre-seed fund and we back coachable superheroes. And so there's more to say about that, but the shorthand is primarily we deploy advice first and capital second as part of our due diligence, and that's DO diligence, not DUE. And then superheroes refers to the areas we look at: economic mobility, healthcare for all, and ed tech for the marginalized are the three areas we invest in. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm such a excited to be part of the New York ecosystem, and I'm so thankful to come back, and we had such a good time last time.
Well, and the feedback about your feedback was excellent. I think the best came from our podcast editor, actually. He was doing a lot of cuts, and we had a really long episode last time, so he had to cut the both of us quite a lot. It was like a 2.5 hour recording, which on YouTube was 2 hours. On the podcast wound up being like 1 hour 30. And he goes, I cut you guys back a lot, but I hope it was okay for him. He's such a thoughtful guy, and he had such great things to say. So, even for the not founders in the room, you're making impact.
Thank you so much. The only one person who was upset about that episode was my wife. We had our anniversary dinner and I left her alone by herself at the restaurant for 45 minutes.
Mike did not share this with me until later, which I have to send a thank. What's your wife's name?
Catherine,
thank you so very much. There's actually a bottle of wine waiting for you and Catherine. So we will send you off with that.
You have her dialed. That's going to be perfect. See, took care of you, babe. I don't know where you're going to watch it, but
you took care of those founders that night, and they owe you back. The tech community owes you back. Before we get into the pitches, just takeaways from last time, right? We did takeaways last time, but I'd love to hear if you think about, okay, here's what we felt, here's what we heard, here's what was interesting, and coming into today, here's what I'm watching out for. What are you watching out for?
Yeah, I think a couple of the highlights and sound bites that made it out was, telling founders one sound bite you had out was founders take credit for for the work you've done. And a lot of founders, I think last time, they skipped some of the most important parts, or And then the opposite of that is also a pitfall. It's like you see a lot of founders try and take credit for work they didn't do or work that is. So I think those are the things I'm looking for, this authenticity of just being comfortable in your skin. This is the work I did. This is what I didn't do. These are my questions. I think that's something we're really looking for as investors. We're looking really to build a partnership and a relationship, and that has to be founded on trust. I think the other thing too, it's in a 1 minute pitch, and this is just some, it is more about being compelling than complete.
That was my favorite line of yours when I was listening back to things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that, the goal for this is to, if you had to think about one thing, is to get someone to, one of us or anyone watching to lean and go, say, what? Can you tell me more about that? I want to, and that's the most important thing versus like, let me tell you about
Everything.
all 38 product features in 1 minute. And
in fact, wouldn't you say it's better to trigger someone's imagination and then let them go home?
100%.
Like get their brain running at the speed of light on your idea?
100%. And if you're really good at it, you will catch investors. And I talked about this, like they'll superimpose, you have them when they superimpose their own narrative on yours. It's something I work really hard to not do, but we're human. I put my pants on one leg at a time and make mistakes like everyone else. I think it's a good sign when you have an investor, vibing along with you. And if you leave space for them to insert their narrative in a way that is going to be constructive to your end, you don't want to be manipulative. I think that's where you really are. I mean, I guess on theme of the first point, it's the sign of a good relationship and a good partnership to be built, right? At the pre-seed level, like we don't expect you guys to make returns for us, or at least our investors are not for like 7 to 10. So 7 to 10 years, like it's a marriage. So to bring all these themes back together on marriage, like just be honest and be real with us. And then I think it's going to be the foundation for a good partnership versus like a transaction of like, you have money, I need money from you. I'll say and do whatever it takes to get it. That isn't the way
really happening, but you should pretend otherwise. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's a great point, and I think that line really stood out to me too, because I think some of my best conversations when raising our seed round in 2019, by way of, I'll also do introduction here. Sherveen, for those of you who don't know me, have an Interf Agency event, founder, CEO of VC-backed free agency, Hollywood-style representation for tech talent. And in 2019, the thing that I remember most, they actually wound up being our first yes, but they wound up being priced out of the round. It was, I won't name the firm, but it's a 2-person firm out in Brooklyn. I met one of the partners on like a Wednesday, and then I think I met the other one on, I don't know, Saturday or Monday or something like that. And so they had a couple of days where one partner had shared the deal with the other and told them why they were excited. And I remember sitting down at the second one, meeting him for the first time, and he goes, I've been thinking about your idea all weekend. And he had all these ideas, that some of which I had already had and some of which I hadn't. And through his partner, I had essentially infused or seeded in his brain something that allowed him to imagine, kind of a different version of the future. And I think, again, thinking about being compelling, I was clearly compelling enough that even though it was secondhand, that founder got excited by our story.
Precisely. Yeah, there are deals I'm thinking about at my intern chat in the audience, and there's a couple deals we talked about that have just I keep going back to and I keep thinking about, and I think that's really what you want to get towards. And by the way, particularly at the pre-seed level, a lot of that is not the product. That narrative is you, the founder, and so inserting yourself at the right part is just as important as telling me about, these 38 things you've done or the 15 pilots and the 1 million ARR. You're at the pre-seed level as a founder. We're really underwriting you, and understanding your narrative is as important as understanding whatever your IP and your moat. I actually argue, for me, it's actually more important. So
with that in mind, the way it's going to work, founders, again, are going to come in at a time. You'll notice that they get to see the yellow light at 50 seconds. They see a red light at a minute. That's when we'll cut them off. Then we'll talk with them for, again, 5 to 7 minutes each, and hopefully hear some great stories about how the future might work and give some feedback to help accelerate that future. With that, let's welcome, with a round of applause, our first founder. Welcome. What's your name?
Door.
Dor, are you ready to give us your minute pitch and get some feedback?
I am, yes.
You have a minute. Tell us, what are you building?
So hi, everyone. I'm Dor. I'm the co-founder and CEO of PMeets. PMeets is an in-person platform for professional networking. Let's imagine Andrew. Andrew is a financial services consultant looking to transition into fintech. He sends a bunch of messages on LinkedIn. He doesn't get a response. Eventually, he joins a couple of tech mixers that he finds on Meetup, but most of the people there are fresh graduates looking for jobs. Eventually, he applies for an MBA. A couple of years later, he joins another consulting firm to pay for his MBA debt. PMeets is here to democratize the $48 billion MBA market by doing three things. One, creating a professional networking setting for networking and for professionals. Two, increasing the relevance of people you meet. And three, enabling the continuation of the connections that you make. PMeets is here to professionalize the event space, just as LinkedIn has done so for the social
That's
media
about
space.
a minute.
Thank you.
So can you say the name of your company again? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get it all the way through.
PMeets. So
P
professional
meets.
meets, basically.
P
Yeah.
meets. Copy. Okay, cool.
I will say immediate feedback. I think that's a hard name to say.
Okay,
You
that's
might,
good.
you might want to consider.
Yeah, I
renaming.
got that feedback. That's good to. It's good to hear it again.
Yeah.
So can you tell me why you started this business? Are you Andrew? Metaphorically speaking, like why
Are you
why
superposition
are
for
you
Andrew?
doing this? I mean, again, one of the founders' question I always ask is like, why'd you start this business? Because statistically, this is a dumb way to make money.
Yeah, definitely.
Not you, not your business. All entrepreneurs. So it's just like that.
That's
Startups.
for sure. So,
Startups.
I transitioned a lot in my career. I started as a lawyer, then moved into strategy consulting, then did an MBA, then moved into product. My previous company I worked at was Brex as a product manager. So I moved a lot, and I found that in-person networking was the thing that enabled me the most to do that. I studied in INSEAD, and they told me I had a low GMAT score, so I just flew to France. I spoke with the admissions officer. I met a bunch of people. I got recommendations, and I got in. And I also got an offer from Google after. So I just achieved a lot of things through professional networking. I also grew to an entrepreneur father, and I was very close to him. And he was always networking, but I found there's not really a good setting environment for that. Like you have Meetup, you have Luma, but it's events focused and not professional
Everything you
focused.
just said was far more compelling than your pitch.
Bingo. Going to say the same thing.
Think about the fact that you want to know why you created a sympathetic character. I don't know who Andrew is. I know who Dora is, right? Like just think about that, right? I cannot tell you about Andrew. I don't remember anything you said about Andrew. I don't know if you're like shying away from it because you think you need to create a third party character who's like generically looking to network. But I'd say because this is going back to last episode's themes, a tar pit idea. Are you familiar with the term tar pit? For everyone else in the crowd who hasn't heard it before, these are the concepts that everyone kind of comes up with. It's I don't mean to say this about you, but it's babies for a startup. It's, what young people tend to try to solve because they experience the problem themselves. And so then they try to build the startup around it. And it winds up being a little bit of a tar pit, a graveyard of attempts at the space. And as Mike pointed out last time when we talked about this, that doesn't mean someone won't succeed at it.
Yeah.
But it does mean, I think, while you pitch, that's what's going through my brain. I don't know if it's what's going through yours.
Yep. I mean, being generous, right? It's like, okay, well, how have you tested this? Like, can you tell me? And I didn't get that in your minute.
Yeah.
So I'd think about just some consolidation of your story. Forget Andrew. Tell me about Door, and then tell me what you've done. Because if it is a tar pit idea, the best antidote is traction. So can you tell me about how you've tested in market?
Yeah, 100%. I know it's a very challenging one. It's not a B2B fintech SaaS that would make much more sense with my experience. But so we started to create a bunch of events and doing these questionnaires and registrations for people to join the events. We leveraged New York Tech Week. We had 3 events there. We had around nearly 1,000 registrations. And we understood that we need to focus on a very niche market to start with. Now we're focusing on freelancers.
So let me pause you. What 1,000 was an interesting number. What
nearly
is the
1,000.
product? Is it a check-in system?
So the product, we're in the process of building an MVP. We just started a couple months ago. What we're focusing on now is registration to create a business card, creating a meetup or a meet for a very niche target audience. We're focusing currently on freelance developers and designers. So these are professional people that are becoming business people. They need to understand that they need to create their business. So they're looking to network. So you register, you get a business card, you go to an event.
A physical business card?
No, digital business card. You go to an event and then you exchange details with sort of a QR code. And and you can follow up very easy. You can schedule a chat right after it. So we want to enable the continuity.
I very
of the
much
connection.
worry that you're just like jumping. Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I think you're jumping right into the tar pit.
Okay.
I've heard this pitch maybe bajillion times.
Okay.
With I I think, the tap your phone and get the contact info, or while you're at an event, share your digital business card. And that doesn't mean you can't solve a problem here. But if I was able to be less, we can give you more feedback about your pitch, but if I was able to give you more feedback about what I hope for you as a founder instead, spend more time on your problem and spend more time discovering a novel solution. Don't be afraid to come up with something far more interesting. One of the things that I think is interesting about, for example, Partoful and Luma, who have really innovated in the event space, is they decided to do things very differently, right? And I think Partoful especially, it's text-based. It's focused on not, there was a big controversy on X or Twitter or whatever it's called nowadays, the other day about they won't even show you the location until you RSVP, and that made some people mad, and then they defended themselves. My point being, those platforms tried something a little bit more audience or demographic focused, I think, especially Partoful. Your solution sounds like something that's been tried before. If you believe that networking is what gave you your opportunities, tap into what you think about that. I don't think a business card is what got you those doors, right?
Yeah. So that's a very strong point. Actually, the demographics that we're focused on, we're already speaking with private practice therapists, doctors, professionals that are untapped and are sort of dominated by conferences and by different organizations that create these conferences 4 times a year. And we had a lot of interviews with them, and we understand that they actually have a very strong need. So these are the target audiences we're focusing on next. Developers and designers are freelance developers and designers. We really have access to
Why are you
content.
focusing on that initial audience?
Well, can I ask a slightly different question?
Yeah.
So what is the interaction? I dig the problem. It's a long time. I want to break into tech. I want to do some stuff. It's a very, and if I follow the ABC 1, 2, 3, get a job, go to NCED, go to Google, go to Brex. It's a very long, I just want to be a founder. Hey, we got a problem. We got a solution to short circuit that. And what we found is in our events, if we just had these types of interactions, people saved this much time, got this much happier, this much cheaper without having to, NCED's wonderful, but it's also quite pricey, right? Cheaper, better, faster. But what's the key? What is the, I mean, if going to my product head, what is the KPI when you run these events? I don't really care about the registrations and, but these are the interactions that are predictive of people short circuiting the network. And that's how we're measuring it and optimizing for it. I'm curious if you have some thoughts about that versus just running another networking event from New York Tech Week, which, by the way, I am still recovering from.
I decided not to participate as much this year.
You're smart.
Yeah,
I think that's a good. This is where maybe I should improve the storytelling, because it's not about necessarily getting into tech. It's about every professional.
I don't think that was his point.
Okay.
What's the interaction? What? It's about short circuiting. We build networks to maybe this is let
me ask a different question.
Okay,
Why would we use it here?
So we're bringing the venues to the platform. We're pre-selecting venues as well, so anyone can sort of be a host and create a networking event for.
I've discovered and
we're working with very niche.
Sorry, I apologize. I discovered a new way that you want to think about whether or not you're answering a question. You answer this question by adding a new stakeholder. Venues. We haven't talked about venues this entire time. When you do that, you can tell that your pitch has some sort of flaw, because there's some question we asked, and then we went to a new story that is unrelated to the story you've been telling so far. What's a reason we would want to use it here? All the people attending the feedback loop right now.
The people here are not yet relevant. As a founder, you do have so many outlets
Why
for
would
networking.
I want to use it?
If you want to tap into, let's say, doctors or a more traditional industry freelancers, then you might want to join one of their events. And,
I might want to join one of their
and then
events.
exchange detail with them or something like that. But you wouldn't. It's really, we're really focusing more on business owners, professional services industry.
So for time's sake, we got to wrap here, but I'll leave, and maybe when I leave with something, I think I'm confused by that because I thought it's a digital business card and check-in system or networking, kind of app. It now seems like it's a little bit curated community.
Yeah.
It's okay. We can't solve it all today. Any parting thoughts?
No, and a curated community to do what? What is the one thing, the actual transaction?
We can't answer today.
But the thing, and related to your story, and if I understood it, your story was, I wasted a lot of time trying to find what I want to do. If I had the right networks, I would have been able to accelerate it. And then whatever that is, like, just tell me about the actual productize that experience and explain that. That would be where I would give you some feedback of trying to concentrate it.
Keep on iterating. It's a problem that everyone wants solved. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good luck.
I can't help but want tar pit founders to not be in the tar pit.
I'm not against, I mean, we talked about this last time. I'm not against tar pit founders, right? Because tar pit problems mean big TAM. And I said that last time. And you know what? Like I'm yay, like 100x returns my fund. Like I'm into it. I think it's just about how you think about it. And like,
which has to be big. It has to just be massive, right? Versus the same tar pit style solution or the same solution as others in the tar pit.
Right. Or like you carve off one little part of, if you want to use tar pit or red ocean, we're going to build the ultimate network for those in professional, like let's say doctors, okay, to break into tech. And that is all. And we've done it for 10,000 doctors. We've landed 500 jobs in the last 6 months. And we found this. When we pair a Series B founder with this much capital and these type of speed dating situations with we accelerate transitions by this much, and all these doctors are now happy and have vibrant advisory practices, startup roles, and you can like start quantifying that. And then you're like, okay, you can do that with lawyers then too, right? Oh yeah, we can do it with lawyers next, right? And then we can do it with,
Nothing about that story, unfortunately, today was repeatable.
Right.
To your point.
Yeah. And just thinking about like small bits, and then eventually, yes, I get it. You could eventually become the ultimate professional networking transition tool.
But a really weird analogy I want to make before we bring up the next founder.
Go.
There's this documentary I make. I remember I played a lot of, I try to still play video games, but I just don't have time anymore. But I played a lot of video games, especially growing up. I remember watching a documentary on Halo. And one of the things developers of Halo talked about was there's always this 30-second, I don't remember what they called it, but it's like a feedback loop, a little moment of gameplay that they're trying to repeat over and over again throughout a level, right? It's like 30 seconds at a time. They get you in a room that has a certain amount of enemies, a certain amount of adrenaline enters your system, a certain set of things can happen inside that room. And they think about, okay, we want to repeat that for the player over and over again. And I think there's something for startups to learn there. But let's bring up the next founder. Round of applause.
Good, thank you. Hello, everybody.
What's your name?
My name is Matan Gavish.
Matan, are you ready to give us your minute pitch and get some feedback?
I will do my best, absolutely.
Let's do it. Tell us, what are you building?
All right. So my name is Matan. I'm the CEO of CyberSpray. And at CyberSpray, we've effectively working to solve ransomware. So in today, your data is the king. And the cybersecurity game is mostly about putting as many pieces in front of your king so bad guys can't get to it. But spoiler alert, more often than not, they do get to it. And if they do and they manage to encrypt it, then it's game over and you got to pay up. So at CyberSpray, we're looking at that king as a single point of failure that hasn't been addressed at all by the existing solutions. And instead of adding one more piece to the game, we decided to just change the game. What we do is we take your data and we take the king and we turn it into dust. Every file gets sharded into tiny little pieces and then gets spreaded randomly in a completely decentralized manner on your existing network. So if a bad guy actually infiltrates your network, no matter where he lands, he will always hit a dead end. There's no king, no one single point of failure, nothing to take.
That's a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Good job.
Thank you.
So I have some, tech questions. I mean, this is a token? I take all my data, put it on the blockchain, decentralize it as a local, or can you say more about the actual solution and how we onboard this?
I'll talk a little bit about it. Yeah. So right now we're working with companies that have, we want to get to companies that have several hundred computers at a minimum, right? So we're looking to basically spread the data and those little shards into every laptop, server, desktop, computer around the network.
Okay, so you're looking at enterprise, right? So
how does the sharding work?
So our algorithm basically, what we work off your backup. So every time any file gets backed up onto however it is you back up your server, our algorithm goes to work. It breaks down those files. I'm not going to go too deep into the technicalities of how we do it. But what ends up happening is once they've done that, every shard, there's a few things that happen to that. First, it gets individually encrypted. Every shard gets individually encrypted. They get compressed, they get replicated, and then they get randomly distributed around your network.
Okay, as a slightly, I'm a product person by background. I feel like I understand your pitch pretty well. I have two pieces of feedback related to both your answer and the initial pitch.
Sure.
I think the analogy is actually quite strong, the king and the pieces, except I'm going to guess a lot of people don't get it. Because to innately understand that, you have to understand what cybersecurity, to your point almost, you have to understand what current attempts look like, which is exactly like you mentioned, putting a lot between the king, the data in your analogy, and attackers. I think you need to be explicit in that analogy, right? So define more along the way. Say something like, okay, think of it like a chess game. The king represents your company's data. And all of the software you currently use today, your firewall, your this or that, whatever else you want to go through, your training, that all represents the pieces that in a chessboard you try to put in front of your king to block incoming attacks. But XYZ analogy, you turn the king to dust. But define that along the way, because you want to be very explicit about what you're attempting to say is a paradigm shift, right? Stop trying to put pieces in front of the king, start essentially disappearing the king.
Right.
So that's, and the same thing happened when you're describing it. I think it's because you're a little nervous, but it's no worries. We have bright lights pointed at us.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
But I think the other piece is embrace a little bit of the nerdery. You don't need to tell me about the algorithm, but if you said, hey, when I shard these files, it's going to be in each file system. We're going to take this much storage. Get a little bit nerdy so that I get excited about the realization of turning it to dust. Right now, I'm not feeling this like product. My product brain wants to understand more as part of getting excited by, I get the paradigm shift. If it's true and it works, I would understand and want the paradigm shift. But you're actually more hesitating to dive deep, probably to protect somewhat the method, but also, again, because you're trying to stay story focused.
Yeah.
Get nerdy, and feel free to do a little bit of that now.
Well, there's two reasons I stay away from that. I'm actually not from tech. I'm not a tech person. And there are people...
What industry do you come from?
Oh, I come from several different industries. Started a little bit in Wall Street, then had a hospitality company that was sold, and most recently, I was in fitness, multi-location fitness.
How'd you get into this then?
It's time for a new challenge, and I got acquainted with a team of brilliant people that have created that product, and they were looking for a new CEO to lead them and open up markets here. Through my previous experience, I have created enough relationships and connections to open the doors to be able to show this to the right people at the right companies because of my previous experience. And so I don't add a tremendous amount of value to the technical aspect of it, which is why I try to stay on the bigger side of the story. But we do believe that from a business standpoint, and it's been validated by many people in the industry that we trust, that there is something unique here that can change the way we're looking at data security.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with, and as another business person who's had adjacencies into cybersecurity over time, I also feel like I'm a visitor in a strange land when I work there. But I guess maybe this is my feedback on the minute. I think the analogy works. It was pretty much the whole minute, right? I think it's enough just to give me a little bit about understanding it, and this is what the technology does. Lean into your strengths as a business person. So tell me a little bit more about, okay, you started talking about 100 to 200 person. That's a very specific, like, in ICP or initial, ideal customer profile to go to market with. Tell me about the traction you have. Tell me, tell me how you've tested this and why that is the right business segment and how you've been able to. Those are the things that I think from your previous background should be your strengths. So allocate some time for that too. I assume also you're the founder, you're up here pitching. So even though this may not be your technical passion and you say you don't add a lot, it is important you insert yourself into the narrative. I need to know you care. We were diligencing another company today, and it was a very solid company. And at the end of the day, my operating partner and my intern and I, we looked at it, like, feels like a mercenary, not a missionary. And that is hard for me to get behind. And I think other investors, because
unless you're a killer mercenary, to your point earlier,
have to be a
you
killer,
are
yes.
embracing everything about your past as it relates to, well, here's what's unique about what I'm bringing to the table, right? Like, tell me about why you being in fitness matters, right? Like,
yeah, well, before I was in fitness, I was in special ops, so maybe the mercenary part is not.
So why not bring that up,
Why
right?
not bring that up?
Like gonna.
That's like, again, this is last week. Like, take credit for your story. That changes my view and notions of security entirely, right?
Yeah, your mindset as to why this problem is important when you tell me your Wall Street Fitness is like, okay, weird that he got into this. Oh, there's another side of you that cares about the word security in unique ways in your past. Then I go, oh, it makes a lot more sense that he got into this.
Yeah. In fact, the first few years I worked exclusively with law enforcement, both federal, local police. So the idea of security, the idea of giving people the tools to defend themselves against the bad people. Oh, 100%. I do care about this problem. Yeah. It was a transition.
Yeah. Bring that. Don't be afraid of, and I guess this is the thing. I tell this to people all the time in job search contexts, where they've got something that is weird about their career. Maybe they're late in their career, or maybe they come from out of industry, or maybe they've switched roles. I tell them, lean into the thing that you're afraid of rather than not. Make it a strength, because you're not going to win on someone else's game and someone else's playing field. So you are not the Y Combinator graduate from Stanford who studied computer science and is in the basement with 3 of his bros making the latest AI agent. You're going to win because of your past experience, because of the narratives you bring to the table, and give you a unique point of view and allow you to tell a unique story. Lean into that and turn what you feel is maybe a little bit irrelevant into a sharp edge. And that will allow your story to resonate, not with everybody. You won't win every one of those conversations. That's one of the things about leaning into your sharp edge. It will cause some people to say no, but it will cause other people to say yes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, the only thing and you've been an entrepreneur many times.
Yes.
You've probably been to the felt and the chips are down and like you've lost your customer, I need to know that and feel that and know that no matter what, you know what we're going to do? It's like, we're going to go win again. Like that you have to run through a brick wall. And the next question is like, okay, how thick is it? How many times? Like, and being able to talk about that, I think is really important. And it sounds like, again, take credit for your story and the little we were able to glean in 8 minutes and 47 seconds. Like, it took us that long 8 minutes to figure that out. That's an asset. Take credit for the story. And I think that's really important.
Good job.
All right. Thanks you very much, guys. Thanks for the feedback.
I strongly feel that people should not try to win other people's games.
Yeah. I mean, it's like cybersecurity, and this is and talk about what you're good at. Like, it is fine to not be a technical founder and in a highly technical area. And in fact, is an incredible asset amongst founding teams to know that there's someone that's a countervailant business person that is passionate and can try and explain these very complex things down to common sense that are going to drive sales and product, right? Like that's a feature, not a bug, right? We don't have to hide behind those things. And that was sort of my thought. I would love to learn more from Matan, like Matan versus the Matan that wanted to think he had to be for us.
Yes. Don't abstractify, be that person. I love it. All right. Next founder up, round of applause. What's your name again?
My name is Albert Rojas.
Albert Rojas, nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
Are you ready to give your 1 minute pitch?
Yes.
Tell us, Albert, what are you building?
Okay, so I built a platform, DocNote.ai, and it's basically an AI engine that decodes or unlocks clinical jargon. So after the sedation period, you're at the doctor, you're in the hospital, you're reading a bunch of medical jargon. It allows you to point and click and discover more on what the doctor's saying so that you can make the best decisions. And on a last note, the goal would be that our clinicians, if they know now that we can actually do something with their medical jargon that none of us can understand, they can put even more medical jargon in there because we're using AI to help you understand where you are in your clinical challenge. So you know how to make the best decisions. That's it.
Good job.
Very
Yep.
cool. Yeah. You had 12 seconds. We'll just kind of grant 12 seconds. So, you had something you forgot?
You can hit the engine, you can hit the platform, and there's a link there. You can actually, there's a test engine, call my bluff, copy paste anything you want in there. And we wrap up the embeddings with search queries so that you can point and click.
Let me ask the
walk and roll.
obvious question, and let's get it out of the way. Foundational models competing with, your product, right? How do you view that question?
So what we do is we take a foundational model and make sense of it. Because a lot of these foundational models, you'll hear of model drift or spitting out something. You don't know if it's the latest and greatest because it itself is also wrapping itself around the data that it has. By using precision search embeddings, we take what the model produces, we call it the impression, and we allow you to just make sure you got the latest and greatest.
So let me make an argument that I don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
I
sir.
think what you said will
shoot.
be true about a lot of products that wrap on these things.
Yep.
There is a chance that the foundational models get so good at adapting to new requests and use cases. Even adapting UIs is something we've heard that some of them are working on, where they're trying to say, hey, we'll be good at these smaller use cases too, because that's something that we're building into the model's adaptability. Do you have a view on your product in that world where
Absolutely.
it might not? Okay. Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
absolutely. So if a doctor in East Africa discovers a new way of treating something and he posts it, an inverted index, like a Google, indexes that document within minutes. Your model's not going to know about it until the next time that model's regenerated. So the latency for any kind of LLM model is years.
So, but that wouldn't be true if they got very good at instant retrieval.
They
Perplexity.
They don't have a choice. In order to do instant retrieval, the amount of horsepower you're going to need to do that on a CDC schedule, you're going to blow out your power consumptions out the door.
Is that
All
true of
I'm saying is
Perplexity?
that, let me see if I can answer it this way. What you guys are doing in the modeling world is fantastic. Great. I'm just saying combine both the power of the LLM with the power of search, the inverted index. You combine both because in the end, it's all about raising the best document. So leverage both. It's kind of like, before I bought my first house, I remember I went to the next neighborhood just to look at the other houses, even though we were in love with our first house. It's all about making sure you got the best, that nothing's being missed, even in your model. That's it.
Can I take a slightly different question?
Yes, sir.
Why are you the person to solve this problem?
That's a great question. So my father passed from Parkinson's last year. Mistakes were made at the hospital. They didn't follow their notes. My dad, to make a long story short, my dad was a big teddy bear. He needed 24/7 care. Whereas my mom, on the other hand, she loves the army of nurses around her. She wouldn't mind waking up with an army of nurses. My dad didn't want any of that. So he passed in 3 weeks. The reason I truly believe, and I've been in a hospital for about a year after a fall in Spain, I truly believe the reason why we have seniors passing over a hip replacement is because of the disconnect between what the patient is feeling and what the clinician understands. And I'm hoping that DocNote can help bridge that communication gap so that the patient actually understands, like, hey, Mr. Doctor, I think you're God, Jesus anyways. I'm comfortable that you know where I'm coming from so that he can handle this clinical challenge effectively.
Gotcha. Can you say more about the technical? So I understand your personal story.
Sure.
I'm sorry for your losses.
No.
Are there equal parts of your work experience or technical experience that support it the same way?
I've been in this space for a good 30 years. I mean, I'm a computer science data guy. We've all done, everybody in this room has done their work with monitoring movements. The movements, what kind of coffee you drink, how old you are, your sex, whatever. But the influential data, how people are influenced, really is huge. And that's really come about with all the LLM hype. I truly believe it's hype. But it's important. I think people make decisions based on how they're influenced, much more than their movements. And, now, especially with healthcare, I'm seeing a lot of AI going on with automating what's happening inside the hospital. And I got to tell you from firsthand, inside the hospital doesn't need it. It's what happens outside. So it's all about influencing. So we're using AI to help bridge that component.
Yeah.
So
I know this, I've married into this problem. My wife's a academic pediatrician at Montefiore, and I lived at Columbia Med School with her, and I live with this problem.
Okay.
worst inner conversations in the world with her colleagues. And I find myself doing the same things. Like, can someone speak not doctor and then pass the potatoes, please?
I like that.
So I feel this problem. That being said, I'm still trying to discern, like, from a technical basis. Like, I know it sounds like you've told me a couple things, and my advice for you, it sounds really compelling. I think in a minute you should try and get more economy. So it's very
What do you mean by economy?
Great. Let me say, you can get more information conveyed to me in a shorter period of time. Like, I think, yes, anyone who's been in a doctor, it doesn't take long to say, like, you have not understand. Yes, all the time. Scared, nervous, AI. Yep, that can help. Second, I care about this. I've had personal loss. Great. I mean, I don't want to give it short shrift, but in a very short period of time, you can say it very quickly. And then I would say, looking at this room, we've all probably lost somebody in this room, and we can relate to that. And then quickly establish credibility technically. And I'm still, like, I know you've been in computer science for 30 years, et cetera. But I need more to know, like, being in computer science for 30 years, and then to found a company in the hottest, most competitive market right now requires some notion about why you're special, and that would be.
That's why we have the engine out there. It's you go ahead and try it and free. And I will tell you this. Oh, I didn't write it for doctors. Doctors don't need the help. Doctors are amazing. They're Jesus-like. I wrote it for all of us who don't understand the clinical.
Can I tell you,
jargon.
by the way, I didn't get that at first until like the last 10 seconds of your pitch. You kind of said it very explicitly.
Yes, sir.
But that's maybe something to think about, is make that very early on.
I have to, yes.
Yeah. So my mother's a physician as well. I've come from a family of doctors. So, I also feel like I've lived this problem adjacently. One of the things that is happening, I think, is you have a really compelling product and you know it. But I would say it's maybe making you not answer the other details as vividly. That's why I said get some more economy.
Details?
Like, for example, like what your technical background is. And you said computer science for 30 years, right? But the reason that that's not enough, for someone trying to ask that question is to go, great, what's the practical?
Well, it's Oracle, Teradata, Vertica. I've got an invention with Oracle running
I want that to be your answer.
Yeah, it's all on my LinkedIn.
I will tell you this. Your LinkedIn.
I will tell you this, and I'm telling this to everybody here, man. The tech is easy. That's the easy stuff. The hard part is trying to be able to communicate it to get somebody excited.
Actually, I so agree. So here's another thing that happened when you were answering, I think, his question. You started to talk about, it's actually during your anecdote, I think, when you started to describe that you felt the communication between the doctor and your father versus, and then how he viewed the nurses. That's user experience. That's UX and product. Live a little bit more of that right afterwards too. And so what we've built at DocNote, the way you experience it is you're a patient and you're receiving medical jargon and you feel you're receiving medical jargon.
Everybody.
And we say, we want you to translate that medical jargon. You had a really good line. I forget it. He liked it too.
I'm sorry.
Passing the potatoes was the thing you said right afterwards, but right before.
Someone speak non-doctor and
yes,
please
there we
pass
go.
the
Thank
potatoes.
you. So like, if you go to that and then describe how that would look on the phone, because you're saying go try it, and we will, but also if you describe trying it to us, I think that's a very compelling product pitch.
All I can say is this is my very last thing. If you forget everything, if you're happy the way things are today, you go to the doctor, you have your doctor's notes, whatever, you get checked out of the hospital, you get an EMR of a bunch of medical jargon, and you get commercial pamphlets, and they escort you out. If you're happy with that, we're good. All I'm saying is we take that medical jargon, we allow you to point and click. We kind of give you a best attempt of customizing it.
I want to give you a last piece of feedback, if you don't mind, because I really like the product.
Yes, sir.
I really, really like the product idea. I still think so I've given this feedback to founders before where the mission overwhelms the pitch. You are clearly, again, you are certain, and you probably have a right to be with what your product is. However, because you say things like, if you are happy with the way things are, no one's happy with the way things are in this space. Everyone agrees with you. Everyone's empathetic. So get to the product in your description.
The engine's out there.
But
Also,
you're pitching, right?
you're also going to need to get to the business, and I didn't get a chance of this.
To the IT guy in the hospital that before they check you out and give you a bunch of junk. Now
so how's it integrated, right? Is it integrated with their?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a simple
record
API.
system.
Yeah,
simple API.
RESTful API.
But then it's patient facing. So then how does the patient receive it?
EMR or on here to conjugate.
Mike.
We're not here to conjugate the doctor's notes, but we are here to help you point and click and try to
Again, I'm
ask the right
struggling here.
question.
We got to run for
We
time,
gotta run.
but I'm struggling for here. Let me get one more thing, right? I want to hear the patient opens it up. It's in record with the EMR in this way. We've already gotten the HIPAA compliance in this way. Your patient data is stored in the cloud in this way. The patient gets to take it from doctor to doctor in this way. Here's the ways in which they can share it with their loved ones. And I know you're going to say that's why the engine's out there, but I'd love for you when you're pitching to also be able to describe that to people, even in the elevator, right? Not just say, I'm going to pull it up on my phone, will you take it home with you? But also let me describe it to you because it's as compelling in description. But it's a great mission.
Right words for the best answers, right?
Well, good job.
Good job. Thank you.
sir.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Will you entertain the crowd with your thoughts on that while I go
Sure.
talk 1 second to my team?
Sure. I love this pitch. I mean, I think one of the things I think through is what's going through my head is you have to hit all the bases in a minute pitch, and you have to be very economical about thinking about it. And this, Alan went deep on the problem and his passion for it, and I thought that was great. But there's other things that I'm asking for. So things I think through when I'm listening to a pitch, like. And you heard me ask it, and I'll do it. Founder market fit. Why are you the right person? Why are you the best person in the world to solve this problem? Because we get to see a lot of deals, and we get to pick a lot of people. We need to know why you're the best. And best isn't just about passion or your knowledge, or don't take credit for, or don't assume that we don't know. We know everything you've done. You have to tell us and remind us that. I think you have to also talk about traction and business model. Like, it sounds like it's a big problem, but the other thing we have to think is like this eventually has to make money. So understanding how you've tested in public and how this can ladder up, particularly in healthcare, where getting access to hospitals and payers, those are very difficult buyers to get on. And understanding your path to commercialization, you don't have to have it all dialed at pre-seed, but we have to know that you've started to think about it and have some ideas of how you can use this to get there. Also, and this is something I always love about you, Shervin. You always think about, tell me about the user experience. I'm still not totally clear how I encounter it. Do I upload my doc report? Do I have it record during the discharge? I mean, do I snap pictures? I mean, I'm not exactly sure how I encounter this product. And so I just had a lot more questions, but I think just my overall feedback is make sure that if you had 10 seconds per topic to cycle through, founder market fit, traction, problem, testing in public, business model, tell me about your team. And you just have to hit a little bit. You don't have to go through all of them, but just show that you're going to be a comprehensive, you understand there's more than just the problem, the technology solution, and building a startup.
The gift I'm trying to give, or the advice, let's not call it a gift, maybe it's too much to call it a gift. The thing I'm trying to
Feedback is a gift.
Feedback, exactly.
Feedback is a gift.
So
some gifts are returned though. So
and some are not accepted.
That's what my boss told me.
I love that. So I've been telling a lot of very mission-driven founders this lately. For anyone who's here last week or who caught the stream we did the next day, we do something called the Founder Circle, where some founders, both from the feedback loop, but otherwise come up for deep dives with me in a Twitch stream with a couple other founders. There's a founder who I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning it, but had this very compelling prop tech product. And on the stage, we got a lot of the mission. Here's what's wrong about real estate and incentives, and here's all this other stuff. But then the product itself was this very compelling thing that didn't need so much dressing. The dressing almost made me go, I don't know where I am. But when he described his product, which was essentially kind of like a living profile for your home, or for you to view a home. It's like what does the person living in it think of it? What are the pictures they take, not what the agent takes? And again, there's a whole interesting UX there. And as soon as we got to that, I was like, oh, okay, let's play. This is fun. This is interesting. I can imagine how this grows. But before, we were like, here's legislation, and real estate has been broken forever. And by the way, you probably hate your agent, and the agents hate you back, and all this other stuff. Okay, hold on. Do that for, to your point, 10, 15 seconds, but then let me live in what you're building. And I'm trying to allow founders to hear by trying to get it out of them. Hear how compelling your product is. Hear how much you said earlier, investor leans in, how much I lean in when you describe your UX. I'm not leaning in because you describe a problem holistically. I'm leaning in because you have a solution to a problem, right? It's hard though, and I think this is what some founders are going to struggle with. They're going to be convinced something's wrong. I don't know why no one else is listening. I don't know why no one else hears me. It's because you're not telling the right story.
Agreed. Yeah,
all right, next founder up. I'm gonna have a backup timer just in case. Don't mind me. We're gonna go back to episodes 1 through 3 for when I used to use my phone for this portion. Yeah, we have it running, but just in case there's a lag, there might be a lag, Wi-Fi issues. With that in mind, what's your name?
I'm Javier.
Javier, are you ready to tell us what you're building and receive some feedback?
I am ready.
You have a minute. Go ahead.
So I'm not a parent, but there's a thought that terrifies me, which is when my 7-year-old kid arrives and asks me for the first smartphone. And because of that, I've been talking over the last 2 years between MIT, Harvard, Sesame Street with over 300 families. And this is a huge conundrum, not just giving the phone, but the whole transition into adolescence. Now, my co-founder, Betty, who is a mom, and I both stumbled into a crazy insight before we met each other. And it turns out that humanity figured out a way to tackle this and solve this problem before we invented religion. These are called rites of passage. And because of modern urban living, we kind of forgot about them. So with Pandora's Way, we are reimagining rites of passage under a modern lens. And we're creating a toolkit that makes it very easy for parents to transform this problem into a journey that equips the entire family and their community with, just the skills and the resilience they need to tackle the modern life. So we're super excited about this. I've bootstrapped all my previous startups, but now we're looking for a little bit of money to build our first product. So thank you. I'd love to tell you more.
Good job. That's about a minute.
Great.
I think much more in the structure we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll give some feedback before I ask. I have a lot of questions. In there, just to compare and contrast some of the first ones, you worked in the Pandora's Way. I get it, Pandora's box. The story makes sense. You slipped in surreptitiously. I've been a founder many times. I've done this. The words bootstrapping. I have a co-founder. She's a mom. She's a mom. I'm not. So I start to get some things that in my head that go through my head. Founder market fit, team, where you are in the product cycle. You
name drop some good things. Sesame Street.
Sesame Street. You've done testing in public with some big names. So. I thought this was I feel like we need to talk a little bit about the form, and that this was a very good pitch it was a nice
with
round,
one caveat.
full
one caveat.
minute. Yeah, sure, go.
Rites of passage is a description of your philosophy of a solution, but not of the user experience that we were just talking about. So if I could change one thing, it's to expand that section a little bit and have user experience as part of, okay, wait, what does it mean to have people, parents, communities embrace rites of passage?
Totally.
Yeah, but now let's get into it. Because to me, mission accomplished. You have these questions, and to me,
maybe I'm wrong because I'm leaning in and going, hold on, tell me more about the rites of passage.
I just want to give some feedback, and I think the first couple of founders, we've stumbled around it. This was for those that eat, this was a nice full bite. This is a nice full bite that hit all parts of the palate in a minute, which is a very tough ask. So I don't know.
With that in mind, user experience. What is the user experience of the right? Because I think, let me actually say what went through my head first before you go, so you understand, when I'm not a parent.
Please.
I went, okay, I'm going to assume these are, I'm going to use the word rituals that encourage some sort of growth. They're probably guided of some kind, but they come at a time when the person is meant to go through them. Therefore, it becomes a ceremony for the family, for the community. However, what's also going through my head is I have no idea what that looks like. Is this digital? Is this physical? Is this meant for families alone? Is this meant for communities? Is this meant for communities that subscribe to a philosophy that has a rite of passage? Are you introducing new rites of passage to all sorts of communities? So those are where my brain was going. Would love to hear.
Totally. And I think most people would even go that far because the word rite of passage is a bit scary. So I'm using it now in the pitch, but actually we have an internal debate about whether to tell parents that this is a rite of passage or not, because it may have some connotations. But the way we're thinking about it is that for the parents, this lives as a web app or as an app they download on their phone or something they access, whatever is easy for them to access, that kind of guides them through the process of figuring out when is the right time to, in this case, give a phone, and then creates a structured process that is customized for the family.
Can I say, you just
Yes.
said the phrase to give a phone, and you had started your pitch with you're afraid of the moment that you have to give a kid a phone. It took me a second to realize you meant this literally as a rite of passage.
No, I mean, well, maybe this is your I have
You've
three.
gone through this.
I have three of these units,
Yeah.
18, 16, and 14. So I know exactly what that
Does
moment.
sound like the worst? Is that the worst like set
It
of
is-
ages?
One
maybe
is
not.
out. Well, anyways, that worked for me.
Okay.
And that moment as a parent, when you give a kid a phone, you're literally opening the world. And when you talk about it, like I know exactly the conversation I had with my wife, who's a pediatrician and reads all research, and it's basically like, I don't know, you think we should? All his friends are doing it. We just did it, and then we exposing them to the world about all these things. And it is, again, we can all be grown-ups. It felt like letting them have like unprotected sex. Like it was that existential. And like we didn't feel good about it, but we did it when we put some false parameters in to delay it a year, and we knew it was right only by relative pain, which was they had to spend 1 year of everyone else already has a phone. And that was honestly the heuristic by where it's like, all right, that was enough suffering.
Yeah.
It didn't feel considered. So
This reminded me, by the way, I just want to say before we start, I actually do have an experience with this problem because I have a niece and a nephew. And I remember my sister happened to mention on a call with me, and she knows obviously I'm in tech and all that jazz. They were trying to decide what sort of phone to give and at what age. And I went through this whole thing. There had been a lot of articles written recently about the whole concept of it might be really far more negative to not give a child the device if their peers all have it. And this seems to be a huge debate in both parent psychology of family and also in tech. I wonder if there's a way, not that this is a priority because your pitch might just sing with parents and maybe that's enough, but to also, I didn't realize until you like gave your anecdote that I had that. That was like a week or two long conversation with my sister that my mom got involved in a group chat. Like and for some reason that didn't come up. I was still fascinated intellectually by your product, but maybe it is more highlighting the conversation that can happen around that moment. Because again, you said it in the beginning, then you said it again to answer a question, but I didn't get a lot of that journey between. And so describing, hey, here's what happens, by the way, when someone gets a phone today, or when a kid gets a phone today.
to me, like I'm okay with it. You've defined your ICP, and if they, like, look, like the last pitch, like if you never lost anyone, chances are the medical, de-jargoning probably doesn't speak to you. If you don't have kids and this doesn't speak to you. I think I don't feel like my experience is unique. I would like to pivot to like,
Yes.
what's the business? I mean, it sounds like an ed tech. I invest in ed tech. It is very tough to.
It is tough, yes.
So what is the business? You don't have to have it all dialed, but tell me how you think this thing makes money.
So we looked into this. We're going first after a specific niche subsection, which is like metropolitan areas, families with medium high income. But we're a B Corp, so we have the long-term goal to serve bigger swaths of population. We sell this as a one-time payment for the core experience. Feel free. No, it's okay. So it's a one-time payment for the core experience. Parents are paying $250 for a set of YouTube video courses these days for trying to answer this question. So that parents are willing to spend the money on this.
Whoa.
Later on, there may be add-ons that, okay, you get the first phone, you like the process, maybe it's about to talk about sexual education, or it's about to get a first credit card, or whatever it is. So there can be follow-ons.
But hold on, now maybe let me ask my question and then it'll probably relate. What is the experience for the parent and the kid with an example rite of passage?
Yes. So it's different for the parent and the kids. For the parents, and this is, by the way, a relatively low-tech product. So it's not a high-tech solution for the problem. For the parents, is we help you figure out the when. We figure out how to have these conversations.
How?
We are building, so we're talking to a lot of parents. We're also talking to a lot of experts.
Hold on, let me clarify my how question because I think it's very specific. I get you're about to answer a science question. You're like, here's how we think about it.
Yes.
I want to know literally
What
a
is
parent
the
signs
product?
up,
A little
what
questionnaire.
happens.
What is
Yeah.
what is
It's
what
a
is the
brief-
user experience? I'm going to channel my best, Shervin. Tell me about the user experience from screen 1 to screen end.
So we are working.
This is very you.
So right now, the testing we've done, the piloting, has been us running the whole thing with no app, nothing built. Now we are hiring. After this experience, we're hiring a UX expert, a gamification expert to design this whole thing.
Stay on message. What is the experience? Even if it's
A little
written with
questionnaire.
Sharpie and
questionnaire
crayon.
that
A 3-minute questionnaire.
But okay, hold on. Let me tell you why I still want more from you.
Yes.
When you say a questionnaire, it could ask about so many things. It could ask about the kid. It could ask about the parent. It could ask about the school. It could ask about the peers. It could ask about all these things.
Yes.
It could do it over 1 day. It could do it over 5 days. It could be that you have people calling in your no-code your MVP version of this. It could be that the questions are actually about what they want. It could be about, no, it's about the science. It could be that after your questionnaire is ingested, you actually give the same answer every time. Or it could be that your product actually adapts. So I need to know, when someone experiences your product, what are they going through?
I need to know it too, because it's one of the biggest
Sorry, so
questions.
early.
It's
Is
one
that
of
what
the
it
biggest
is?
questions.
Okay.
But yes.
Have you already tested this with people? Have you actually put a Sharpie drawing or Canva or Figma, whatever, in front of how many people, and what have they said, thought, felt, or did?
We're doing the actual experience of building this. We're doing it with 15 people right now, with 15 families. We're in the middle of it. So we started like 2-3 weeks ago running these
Tell
sessions.
me about the preliminary findings that you have going through this.
So the US is extremely diverse.
Tell me about what you're going. So this is the.
So-
tell me about what you're finding.
Okay,
Can I give you an example answer and then you can mimic it?
please.
So with 3 of the parents as an example, they have the core experience they're going through is their kids have peer pressure causing them anxiety. When they fill out our questionnaire, we learn, okay, what are the points of anxiety coming from this? What are the options? What are the things the peers are telling the kid? What is the kid experiencing? What's their friend circle like? And we then go back to our team of advisors who we hope to help build the UX over time as we make this digital. And that team of advisors crafts a plan. It's usually typically a 1, 3, or 6 month plan. That 1, 3, or 6 month plan recommends when that device should be delivered. What should be the restrictions on the device? How to use screen on time in the iPhone. I don't have an iPhone, so I don't know how that works. Then we follow up. So currently we're following up manually with a phone call, but we imagine in the eventual UX experience here, we're actually inside the kid's app, on the kid's phone as an app, and we're actually ingesting some of this data. We're taking screen on different applications. We're helping the parent analyze usage. That's the sort of, and we're
Amazing.
so past time.
No, but this is so useful. Thank you so much.
I want you to tell
Appreciate
more
it.
of this story because I think both of us are compelled.
So useful. Yes.
I know we're past time. You know what acceptable answer is too? Don't know yet. Don't know yet. But here's how we're testing it. We're going to be listening for, the answer is
Perfect.
I don't know. We're starting testing the next 3 weeks. We're listening for 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6. I will get back to you with what those answers are as soon as I'm done.
That's amazing feedback. Thank you. Yeah.
Keep it up. This is a good mission. Good
Thank
job.
you. Thank you so much.
Your feedback around the don't know reminds me of a Mark Suster line. Investing in it's investing lines, not dots.
Yeah.
It's something that he said pretty early.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to happen that way. But for a founder that's very early, I actually think they should embrace that methodology. So the whole idea is when you meet someone, you're a dot, right? So they peg you somewhere in their evaluation of you and you're a dot on their graph. When you meet them a second time or you hear back from them a third time and suddenly it forms a line and there's some sort of progression, there's some sort of progress made, there's a story and a narrative forming. And his whole point, I think this blog post is like from 2010, was, hey, I try to find people, not just at the moment they want my money, but beforehand while they're getting data, while I can influence them to get certain types of data. And again, if you're past a certain stage, you shouldn't try to do this. You have a dot that is compelling enough to be invested in off the one-off meeting. But if you're early, one of the best things you could probably do is get in touch and not make it a pressure point on that first moment, but instead, hey, here are my hypotheses. Here's what I'm evaluating against. Here's how I'm going to. I hope you learn about this over time and you invest in the line rather than the dot.
Yeah. And again, to build on that, anyone who's built a 0 to 1 startup will appreciate that answer. I don't know. I don't know. Here's what I'm going to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I could be wrong. For me, and I can only speak for me, that's much better than answering some, just tell me the truth. I've been there. I know what it feels like to go from gas station to gas station and start interviewing people and getting turned away.
What were you building at the gas station?
Oh, that's I will. It is an aftermarket auto parts marketplace, which I think there's huge. We could talk more about that.
Wait, get in that seat.
But we've built, and if you talk to any any operating VC who's built like, no, I get it, dude. Like, and actually that is so much more refreshing. And I want to back those founders who are into the grind, who want to go and get between the awkward teenage moments and the sad, frustrated, angry, door slamming, prepubescent teenager that says, I don't know why I can't have a phone because Polly does, right? Like no, I'm here for it. And that is a feature, not a bug. That is a positive signal, not a negative signal. You asked
the hand-to-hand combat.
Well, you asked the question, like, I asked, like, tell me about what you found. It's like, we're hiring a UX designer. That is not the question. Like, I just want to know what you found. And there were a couple times in that. Again,
it's
it goes
the
back
same
to the
thing.
only thing.
Don't compete on a different person's game.
Yeah, exactly. Take credit for what you own, and don't take credit for what you didn't do. Right. So just tell us the truth. And I think a good investor you'll find the right match with the good investor who resonates with your authentic story. Just make it easy for us to find that.
Totally.